Now, today, all of us here at Voice of America are extremely proud. 75 years ago today, on February 1st, 1942, VOA made its first broadcast. Now, we broadcast in over 45 languages worldwide. We also broadcast in every means that people could possibly want to receive their news and information. Television, internet, mobile, and radio. Yes, we still use radio. Joining us now to help celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Voice of America is VOA Director Amanda Bennett. Director Bennett, it's a pleasure to have you on Africa 54.
Thank you so much, Vincent.
On this momentous occasion.
Thank you.
So this is like a great time for all of us here, but personally, tell me, what does this mean to you?
The 75th anniversary, first off, I'm so proud to be here now at this moment in time, but also thinking back over what Voice of America has meant, how many historical events we've been through, how many historical events we've covered, how many different countries we've had, how important we've been to places in the world that can't get objective news and information otherwise. It's really a really humbling experience to think about those years and to look forward to the next years.
I know personally I grew up listening to VOA and dreamed that one day I'll be here.
So many people grew up listening to VOA.
Yeah. Now, talking about history, some will say, well, in 1945, the world was different. There were different things happening. Has the mission changed over the decades?
You know, I think there was a period when everyone lost faith in the mission. The mission has not changed, and I think now there is a complete renewal of faith and seeing that the way the world is trending right now, we're actually more necessary than ever. And our mission, two things, really simple. One is to bring objective news and information, truthful, objective, neutral, independent news and information to the world, to places that can't get it otherwise. And the second is to tell America's story around the world. And I tell people that for journalists covering America, America is the biggest, richest, most wonderful beat. There's so many fascinating things to tell people about.
And we did mention at the top that we do reach people through different means. In fact, there are people out there who think we just do radio.
That's right, and you find that people, think about the past history and don't think about the future. We actually have been growing quite substantially in television and in internet. We've got a tremendous growth in our social media. We're actually, in many countries, we're the first, second, or third most popular social media site in those countries. We're being very, very aggressive in social media because we want to reach people where they're getting their news and information. And you're right, if they're still getting it from radio, we'll still be on radio. But if they're getting it on their mobile phones, we're going to be there too.
Yes. You know, growing up in Kenya, for example, there was a time when you listened to Voice of America in order to know what's happening in your own country. But then I do find Americans who think Voice of America is just perhaps a purveyor of U.S. propaganda. What would you tell those?
Well, I think one of the things is that around the world, and we've been hearing it today on our 75th anniversary, is that we are, despite the fact that we are government owned, we are known around the world for neutral information, for being information that you could trust, for being information that in your country, if you weren't able to find out about your own country, you could at least trust Voice of America. And I'm watching now as we're telling not only stories about things inside your own country and about America, but because we've got over 45 languages inside these services, we can bring you news from all around the world. And we can bring you news you can trust from other countries of the world.
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned how it has that impact worldwide. You probably have been told, accounts of how perhaps it has changed not only people's lives, but communities' lives. Are there some you can share with us?
Well, I think mostly it's just so inspiring I've made a point of asking everyone that I meet in Washington, D.C., who is apparently an immigrant, and I ask them, do you know Voice of America? And so far I've had 100% success. Every single person there who has come to this country has VOA someplace in their background. When you think about the number of people's lives that we've touched, I think it's really remarkable.
Now, we know the scene of the world is changing, especially the media scene. Looking ahead, let's maybe think there will be another 75 years ahead of us. What are some of the challenges and opportunities?
Well, for one thing, I do think in this climate, in this world climate where the information is just pouring in from all directions, true, false, people are having a hard time figuring it out, we have an even greater opportunity, even greater responsibility to be the reliable news service, to be the reliable organization that lets you see all sides of the story, tells you things factually and honestly, and does fact-based journalism.
Mm-hmm. In terms of technology, are there chances that perhaps some of the methods by which we communicate either will be phased out, or Voice of America will continue being received in the various ways people can get it?
It's going to be continued to be received in the ways people can get it. Is it going to be phased out or phased up? We don't drive this process. We follow it. So if people are listening to more radio in a country, and surprisingly enough, we have some audiences where people are increasing their use of radio. If they're increasing their use of radio, we increase the use of radio. If they're decreasing the use of radio, we decrease. We're not the leaders in this. Our audience is the leader.
I know that you personally, as growing up, were inspired by Voice of America in pursuing your career. Would you share that a little bit with us?
Yes, I was the correspondent in China back when the capital of China was still called Peking. And I remember taking my shortwave radio and putting it out on the windowsill and holding it out so I could listen to Voice of America. And I just remember thinking that this was the most wonderful thing in the world.
It did. For many, it is. So how are we celebrating this 75 years?
Oh, we've got a whole long list of programs. We've had people around the world sending us good wishes. It's just been really inspiring to me to see world leaders like Ban Ki-moon telling us that Voice of America influenced him when he was young. We've got lots of parties. We just came from having cake at the news meeting this morning.
That's great.
People are telling their personal stories. Our journalists are telling their personal stories. And we're going to be having events and panel discussions and journalism discussions. We've got a lot planned.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the challenges we receive, or as Voice of America, from those who run media that is is independent, that perhaps has certain resources that we don't have? How does that challenge our ability to do our job?
Actually, I think you can see that independent media is challenged all around the world. And in some ways, I think we actually have the resources that could be of help to many places, because we have a global reporting and editing structure that I think is unrivaled in the world. And so we've got reporting assets and the ability to tell stories all over the world that we want to share with everybody we possibly can, because I think everybody's challenged right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I still have to kind of look at perhaps, the changing world also. We have a world where there is more increase of the population of the young people, and perhaps some of those young people have different ways of receiving news and information. As Voice of America, as we celebrate 75 years anniversary now, how are you approaching that in order to make sure we capture these guys?
Well, for all of us who have children of our own, we are observing the way people are getting their news and information. And that's why, one of the reasons why we're developing all these other ways of communicating. We're using social media, we're using video, we're using things that can be seen on the cell phone, we're using things that can be seen, we're developing things that can be seen on the cell phone in places where there's not very good connectivity, so they can be seen around the world in many places. And you know what? When people develop new forms of communication, we'll figure out how to get our news and information out there.
So finally, Director Amanda, tell us something that perhaps I haven't asked you, but you think we don't want to leave out in our conversation today.
Well, something you can't ask me, but I'll tell you, is how proud I am of you.
Oh.
And how proud I am of your service, and how proud I am of this show, and how proud I am of everybody like you who are here. It, to me, is just a real honor to be allowed to work among people like you who really understand the value of a free press and a fair press. So I want to thank you all for everything you do.
We appreciate so much. We really appreciate the fact that you appreciate what we do, and it's good to have you as our director.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to greater things ahead of us. Another 75 years.
Another 75 years. I'm going to be here for the next 75.
Let's hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, that's Director Bennett. It has been a pleasure definitely having you on Africa 54. Talk about history of VOA and celebrate the agency's 75th anniversary. Well, thanks to Amanda, now the director of The Voice of America.